to the Gen Z show. I am your host, James McLamb. This is brought to you by Generation Ziegler. And I'm joined today by one of my favorite co-hosts, Kenzie Shelley. How are you doing, Kenzie?
Hey, James, I'm doing really good. And you?
I am doing excellent. And when we are recording this, we are in the first week of the new year. So happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year. I'm really glad to be here with you.
And today we are really excited about who we have as our guest. It is a friend of mine from about 6 years now, Tyler Williams. Tyler Williams, originally from Georgia, now living in Nashville, Tennessee area, has a great, unique story in that I kid with him in the podcast that he just can't keep a job, but in reality, he's just so talented. There's so many things he wants to do. He is a race car driver. He is a country music singer, a speaker, and a coach. And he really has a unique message and story that he wants to share with folks in helping people really achieve their performance potential. But today's show, he really did some outstanding things. What did you love the most about what he shared with us today, Kenzie?
Man, Tyler Williams, he just has such a cool story. And, we like to joke that men can't multitask, but here he is. He's a country music singer, a race car driver, and a life coach, really. And today we're going to learn a lot about, what he believes in and how he got to where he is today by taking risks and being specific about what your goals are and just showing up big. And that's one of the things that I just really enjoyed from this interview is talking about showing up big in everything that you do in life and knowing that it's going to be okay, that things can look bad, but, in the end, it's going to be okay.
I want you to make sure that you share this and watch this thoroughly through this interview. But at the end of the interview, we're going to close not with our normal little sound off. We're going to close with one of Tyler's songs as well. So you want to stay all the way to the end to make sure you hear that. Click the subscribe button below, share button as well, and click on Tyler's links as well. And now let's jump right into our interview with Mr. Tyler Williams. Hey, Tyler, welcome to the Gen Z show, my friend. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, it's good to see you, James. I appreciate you having me.
Tyler and I, for the audience that have known each other for, let's see, at least probably about 5 or 6 years now.
It's at least that. It might even be longer.
So I was trying to think. I think if I came in a year, I think I was the class a year ahead of you in the Ziegler legacy certification. So, and I know I did that in 13. So it's probably about 6 years. Wow, that's a long time.
Yep.
For his stuff. So, and for our audience to know, Tyler and I are both Ziegler legacy certified trainers, and that's how we got to know each other. Met down in Plano, Texas, working with Mr. Tom Ziegler and the whole Ziegler family. And we're really excited about having you here today and joining us on our show.
Yeah, can't wait to dive in and talk about some performance issues, talk about what's going on in the world, and just share some ideas and lessons and get connected again.
Well, our audiences want to know who you are. They'll be able to read some of the things down below in the show notes and maybe click on some links, but they want to hear from you, the things that you want to share with them about yourself. So introduce yourself to our young audience.
Right. Well, I'm a country music singer and race car driver, and those things I do for fun, they're a thrill. And I also use those, more importantly, to help individuals and organizations tap into performance potential, because you live and work in high stakes environments every day on the racetrack, on the stage, singing and performing. And I can take lessons that are valuable for me and bring those back to help people understand themselves at a greater level and create more impact in their lives. So doing a lot of fun work on the stage, speaking, coaching, and creating transformation.
How did you get started into either one of those aspects, or just do it in the order in which they came in your life?
So naturally, singing came first. Just as a kid, I was a noisemaker, and I wouldn't shut up. So my mom would be on the phone, and I'd be screaming in the background, singing, doing all kinds of weird stuff for people on the phone listening, But then got into a choir in middle school, and like any kid, it was just a thing to do, right? It's kind of like it's a class requirement. Well, it turned out that our choir director auditioned us for a traveling production that was rolling through Atlanta, and it was Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And so as an 11-year-old kid, I got to be a part of this touring production for a full week of shows at the Fox Theater in Atlanta, 4,000 people in the audience. And the first year was just fun. Second year, they came back through town and they asked us to be a part of it again. And at 12 years old, it clicked that people actually get paid to do something like this. And I knew in that moment I wanted to be an entertainer, not necessarily a Broadway style musical, but I just wanted to be on stage performing in front of people and being a part of a team doing that. It was a thrill. So that was my first taste of entertainment. And I really fell in love with music at a deeper level at that point. A few years later, I had one bad performance at a house party where I forgot the lyrics. And for a decade, I didn't sing or perform in public at all. And so I shut down that whole experience of something I love to do just out of fear, one bad experience. And so music came first. My uncles are mechanics on my mom's side. And so I grew up around cars. And it just so happened I fell in love with NASCAR as a kid, about 11, 12 years old, but I wasn't close to it. They were mechanics who were doing mud racing and drag racing type stuff, but NASCAR was a whole other world that none of us knew anything about. And just through self-determination and taking the initiative, I learned everything I needed to know about NASCAR, motorsports, how people get started. And I had a grandfather who'd given us some Walmart stock as a kid. And so when I was 19 years old, it happened to be worth about $20,000, which to me was a ton of money, right? And the plan was that's going to be a down payment on a house one day, or maybe get started in a marriage or something for your future, right? And I decided, hey, what better to do than go racing? And so I bought a used race car and had no idea what I was doing, but knew that I wanted to do this. And that was the journey of racing, where it began, 19 years old. And I ran full time for about 5 years and took some time off. And now I'm back in it again, doing both music and racing. So sometimes when things fall apart or seemingly fall apart, they come back around full circle and we can dive back in. So it's been a strange progression of going from music to racing and then bringing them both together into one.
So
go ahead, Kenzie.
Oh, so you said you also do some coaching, and I know you wrote a book. So how did you get to that point from, music and racing, and then what made you decide to start doing this coaching and trying to inspire people with what you do?
So that's a great question. I guess I was about 26, 7 years old. I was just going through a breakup, a girl I thought I was going to marry, and kind of had that quarter life crisis that people talk about now. You get out of school, you've done some work, but things don't seem to be going as planned. And so I did a big year of just discovery. I went to counseling, did some therapy. I experienced some coaching on my own. I was in a men's group, and I heard for the first time a lot of people say, hey, like where you're at in life is not bad. It's not wrong. It's just a season. And what I learned during that year taught me that I didn't know a lot of stuff that I thought I should have known. And so I wrote this book, I Have a Voice, back in, I think we published it in 2016. And I wrote it because I thought the 15 or 16-year-old version of me needed to hear what's inside of that book. And it's this idea that I have a voice, that at the core of it, that you matter, but deeper into that, how do we look at life? How do we pursue life? How do we engage with the world around us in a way that's meaningful for us, despite the setbacks, the failures, and how we can get back up again and move forward. And that launched a whole journey of speaking. My first speaking engagement was actually 2012. And then from the last 8 years or so, it's just grown to being able to speak, to coach, to help others discover more of who they are. So what I'm really passionate about is helping others awaken and activate their performance potential. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, when they hear performance potential, they kind of go, oh, I don't like the word performance, because then I have to go do something. And you're telling me it's gradable, right? You can pass, you can fail. It's a great performance, it's a bad performance. What I'm more interested in is the expression of potential and helping people see how great they can be when they fully express themselves in the world. So that's where I got my start. It's a lot to take in at once when you combine all of it.
Yeah, no.
Like really you can't hold a job down. What's the matter with you?
Hey, it sounds like it, but we do it, right?
That's exactly right. I want to go back to what you said about the fear that you had when you failed that time of that stopped you for a year from doing what you loved and stuff. How did you overcome that? How did you move through that? I can tell you from experience coaching young people, that is something that they want to know right now, because a lot
Right.
of them are, they failed.
Well, failure happens for everyone. But at 13 years old, my dad was a dentist, still is a dentist. He's practicing today, 40 plus years. He didn't talk a lot about failure, and I didn't see a lot of failure because he was always relatively successful in his work. And the people around it, for the most part, you're going to school, your classmates, all you're doing is going to school, you're getting graded on your class work. And then if you're in athletics, you're getting graded on your wins and losses. But failure to me wasn't something I personally had a big experience with. And that one performance, I have friends I've talked to today, and they're like, I don't remember that night. It's a blip on the radar for them, but for me, it was a monumental experience. And I wish I could have said, the next day, my mom was there to see it, or my dad was there to see it, or had a friend put their arm around me and say, hey man, you're going to get back up and we're going to do this tomorrow. But I didn't. One, I didn't share the experience with anybody. I internalized it. And so as soon as it happened, I made that internal decision, hey, I'm never going to do this again, because I didn't want to feel embarrassed. In high school, middle school, high school, and college, those are prime opportunities to feel shame, embarrassment, guilt, and you want to internalize those, right? Because you don't want to share with anybody. And so I learned just to hold that internally inside. And for really 10 years, I didn't perform in public. I was terrified to speak in classrooms. So whether it's high school or college, getting up in front and presenting, I was terrified. My knees would shake, my heart would race. I hated it. And then racing started bringing some of that back out, because you had to do some interviews, you had radio, TV, even the local racing I was doing. But it really wasn't until my mid-20s where I fully broke into awakening that part of me that I suppressed, that wanted to be on stage, that wanted to entertain, that wanted to share stories with people. And so, again, the book is kind of that story of how you can go back in any given moment. I waited 10 years to really begin reawakening that story. And that's 10 years too long. And so when I talk about failure for anyone, especially 15, 20, 25-year-olds, it's what can you do the next day to get back up? Who can you talk to? Who's in your corner? And what narrative, what story are you telling yourself about that one experience? Because what you think is the end of the world, it rarely is. We have obviously big trauma events that happen, but for small events in classroom settings, or even relationships with friends at school, the things we think are the end of the world, really, they're just small moments in our lives that when we can change the story and the meaning of it and direct it towards something powerful, then we can create true transformation.
So what are some of the steps that you would advise someone? Just make a scenario. We got a 17-year-old, they failed at maybe getting into the college they want,
Right.
or maybe getting that scholarship athletically or musically for they want. What steps would you give them to change that story that they're telling themselves? Because right now they're telling themselves, I'm a loser, I'm a failure. It's
Right.
not someone else that's necessarily telling them that. They're telling themselves that.
Right. Well, in the moment, it's first create the awareness. So what is the story? So you can objectively say that I didn't get into the college of my choice. My life is over. My friend's going there. We had this whole plan. It's not working out. Life's over. So what is the narrative story you're telling? I'm an idiot. I'm stupid. I'm not good enough. I did everything and they still don't want me. So I'm no good. I don't matter. Whatever the story is, get it on paper. Write it down so that you can sense it, so that you can feel it and get a full understanding of what position are you putting yourself in. And then recreate the story that's truly true. If you didn't get into college because you needed a 4.1 GPA and you only had a 4.0, or you missed this one point on this test, or you didn't have the extracurriculars that they were looking for, or maybe you just don't even know. They just said, hey, you got rejected. It's creating the transformational story of how are you going to let this either hold you back or lift you up and move you forward. Because at the end of the day, again, what we think is the end of the world isn't. So what's the next thing we can do? We can apply to that next school, or we can go to a junior college and then transfer into that school. So it's reframing the end of the world scenario into what's the next best option. And of course, as someone who's been down the road, I've been through college, I'm many years removed, I've been through a lot of different failures. I can tell you college is just one little moment in your life, and it's more about the friendships and connections and studies, and the actual school doesn't matter as much, right? And so it's getting around people who can affirm. So maybe you have a mentor in your life, an older adult, a coach, a teacher. Maybe if you're parents, you have great relationships, you can talk to them, be able to vocalize that experience to someone that you trust and who you know can help you get out of the negative headspace, because you can't do it alone. The awareness starts on your own, right? But once you get past the awareness phase, you need other mentors, other coaches, other friends to help lift you and guide you and can say, hey, that's not the end of the world. I know it feels like it right now. I'm hearing what you're saying, and I can understand that that's really painful. It's a heavy place to be, but what I know of you is this, and have them affirm who you are, and really just pour life into the story. And every day, look at the positives of the story. So you got that negative view that you've created, but then you have the positive one that you're now going to affirm. Hey, I'm not stupid. I'm not an idiot. I have potential. I have what it takes. I do matter. Life is great. It's tough right now, but it is still great. And so creating gratitude for the future opportunities.
How would you recommend they start really dreaming again? Your song "Believe Again" has a line in there about dreaming again. Keep on dreaming, as well. I just see this, and Kenzie and I both have experienced, major failure, something that we wanted to go for, and then it went away. But we did have those kind of resources that you do. We were able to reframe the story, understand that was not the end. But unfortunately, Kenzie and I's experiences seem to be, the exception to the rule so often. People just are saying, okay, I'm gonna have to settle for life. How do you get them? How did you do it, rather? How did you, start dreaming again?
I think by nature, I'm always been somewhat of a dreamer, even when I didn't feel like I was accessing the potential of that, right? And so some people maybe are very analytical. They want that structure. They want to be very logical about the future and say, well, if this is happening, then this is going to happen. And what I do with anyone that I'm working with, and even someone who maybe just on the street, you're having a conversation, let's tap into the dreams. I believe dreams are our personal future, and they help shape our destiny and the lives of those around us. And when you're living in your dream and I'm living in mine, we begin to create a world of potential and possibility, and it changes the nature of our life experience. And so that just starts with giving yourself freedom and permission. Even if it's an outlandish dream, you have to be willing to take a risk. And so the one thing is just take a risk and pull out a piece of paper and write down everything that you think you want. What do you want to do 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 1 year from now, and create scenarios of the most ridiculous things you can think of. Now, this isn't, I want a Lamborghini, I want a 10,000 square foot house. It's not just about the external circumstances. It's what I want to feel in life, what I want to experience in life, what kind of love do I want to experience, what kind of joy do I want to experience, where do I want to laugh. And that's where I begin everything with a dream is, what does it look like? What does it taste like? What does it smell like? What are your senses engaging when you're doing your dream? When I'm racing, my senses are on overload because you're in this environment, the stakes are high. You've got the sounds of the race car engine, you've got the smell of the exhaust and the fuel and the tire rubber burning, and your eyes, you're seeing all the sensory overload as you're processing so much data as you're on the racetrack. Same thing on the stage. There's these experiences you're having, and when you tap into them, you can use them to pull yourself forward. And the interesting thing when you study brain science is when you are doing an activity that you love and you dream of it, the difference in your brain is not that different, right? So if I'm on the racetrack, but I also think of it when I'm not, the brain doesn't actually recognize the difference. And so when you start dreaming, you begin to activate the possibility of potential in your brain to help you begin to move forward towards the very thing that you're wanting. And so number one, take a risk. Number two, get very specific and write down what are the things that you want. I'm a very intuitive person, so I feel it more than somebody who might be a data type person. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of it's my gut level instinct. What do I want? What do I feel? When I stopped racing in my early to mid 20s for a little bit, it was because we ran out of funding. But I had the sense that, man, pair up country music and racing, and then you've got a story that no one else has, and you can secure sponsorship. But I wasn't confident in the singing at that point. And so it took another 5 to 6 years to begin to reawaken the music enough to where now I can pull that dream back out and say, hey, Marty Robbins was the last race car driver, country music singer that I know of in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Well, why can't I do that? And so now here I am, I'm in my 30s, and I've awakened this dream that I could potentially be the next Marty Robbins and race at the top levels of NASCAR and sing country music with songs going to country radio. Well, that's a crazy dream, right? But I gave myself permission to dream, and I gave myself permission to put it down on paper. And then I gave myself to take the risk and find out what are the next steps I need to do. So now it's not just something on paper, it's what's the first thing I can do? Well, I can get vocal lessons. Okay, well, I can go to Nashville and I can write songs with Nashville songwriters. Okay, well, now we can meet producers. And I can go to Charlotte and I can meet race team owners and race shop owners. And so for everyone dreaming out there, it's, you might be 15 years old and saying, well, I'm 10 years away from working because I know I'm going to go to university, I'm going to get a graduate degree. And my challenge to you is don't be afraid to start dreaming now. Don't be afraid to awaken the possibility of what might you do at 18 or 22 or 25 now, because you can begin learning and gathering information, gathering knowledge, gathering connections and mentors who can help guide you and steer you. I think back to 15-year-old version of me, and I go, man, like if I would have put myself in situations where mentors would have been prominent in my life and I would have been highly connected and networked, how much faster could my dreams have come to life than had I stayed in my, I stayed in my little silo, right? I had this little box and it was safe and it was comfortable. And I had a great life, right? High school was fun, college was good, but there's so much more that I could have experienced had I taken the risks to do more intentional work towards awakening and activating my dreams as a kid.
I thought you were about to say something, Kenzie.
Nope, not yet.
I really am wanting to hear more of where you are now in your journey. We've talked about the failures, the setbacks, the time that things been on purpose. And I know with 2020, nobody's exactly where they wanted to be in their life journey. Or I guess some folks could be on their life journey. But where are you at on your road there? And how are you still, finding that energy and motivation to keep going?
Right, that's a great question. In 2015, I released that book, I Have a Voice. I put out an EP. It was kind of social proof of, hey, I've overcome this thing, this fear of performing. But I didn't really have an intention of becoming a country music artist. Mm-hmm. It was a supplement to the book. And my intention was just to speak on stages and coach and help individuals and organizations.
So when you did that EP, it was just, it was not to launch a music career. It's just kind of a supplement. Oh, wow.
Right. So I'd done karaoke and open mic nights, and I'd done some music stuff before the EP, but it was for fun, right? It was for my friends. It was for me. But when I was writing the book, I just said, you know what, this needs a little bit more. And so I called up a friend and I got connected to someone, and we rushed that project. We wrote 5 songs in 5 days. Those are the 5 songs we recorded. And that's what ended up being on that EP. Well, if you know music, typically you might write 50 or 100 songs to get down to your best 5 or 10 for an album. And so it was a great learning experience. And it was a great example of taking risk and putting yourself out there. But it wasn't with the goal of I'm going to be a country music artist. And so I put that out, but inside it did reawaken something, right? It was an unplanned, so you take a leap of faith to do something, but inside it just awakened. It was like you have these embers, this coal is burning, and the fire's not totally out, but it's not really going either. But it was like that EP and the book combination. It's like it stoked the fire, and this fire came back to life. And so that started a new journey for me back in 2015-16. And then from there, it awakened the idea that, okay, let's do music and racing together. Let's search for partners and sponsors and teams to try to make this something bigger. And that's really what I've been working on the last 4.5, 5 years. I put out 2 more EPs since then. You can find them all digital outlets for music, Spotify, Apple Music, Google, Amazon, and whatnot. But it still felt a little bit selfish, right? Here I am, I'm in my 30s now. I'm chasing this dream. I couldn't give up on coaching and speaking because I knew that's where the real transformational work was, not just for me, but for the people I work with. And so now I look at it, somebody says, well, you got to choose one or the other. You got to race, or you got to sing, or you got to coach. You can't do all these things. And the way I look at it is I can speak on stages and I can coach, and I can use all the experiences that I'm learning on the racetrack and on stages and in the writer's room performing as an artist to help me connect better with people, because every day I'm facing failure or the potential for failure. Every day I'm stepping into the idea of this is a dream. It's a dream not realized. By definition, I can tell you I'm a country music singing race car driver, but I still haven't hit the level that I want. So I can tell you, hey.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were done.
Yeah, no, I'm in the process of, I'm still trying to become the driver and the singer and performer that I want to be. But I also have this career where I help create transformation based on the work that I'm doing in that external world.
So going into this new year and, everything, you said it was slow and picking things back up. What are your goals in each of those categories going into this, new year?
Well, she's putting you on the spot there.
That's right. Yeah, 2020 was a tough year for me. Music and racing, had a funding potential opportunity that dried up because of COVID. Music, I was going to have another album already out by this time, but I had about 25 rights canceled early on, and just some other business activities in the consulting coaching space kind of dried up for a little bit. So it was a tough year. And when you're trying to race and do music, they take a lot of funding. And some of that's from other people, some of that's from myself. And so last year was really tough because it felt like two things that I loved were somewhat taken away temporarily. And now this year, it's about reawakening those opportunities. It's about, it kind of felt like I put my head in the sand. And so it's about, bringing myself back up to life, stepping into the things that I know that I'm great at, which is helping create transformation for people and doing more of the things that I love. So, a lot of the songwriting was on Zoom last year. We'll still do a lot of that. At some point, we'll get back to writing together in Nashville in rooms physically together. So the goal is we're going to put out more music this year. I don't know the number of songs we're going to do, but at least 5 to 7 is the goal, just to keep music coming along. We'll perform more, get back on stages once live audiences come back around. There's some stages that are open here in Nashville where I live, but it's not fully open. So we'll get back to doing some more live events. Speaking, we'll do more than ever this year. Again, I kind of put my head in the sand on the virtual side last year, but we're gonna do a lot of virtual speaking engagements this year. Again, at some point, we'll get back to doing some live ones. I'm looking to do about 45 to 50 events as a speaker next year, or this year, 2021. And then I also do a little bit of one-to-one coaching and small group coaching as well. So it's a mix of everything, and we're always in search of partners to help it go to the next level. So there's always the chance that we could make a move into the NASCAR Truck Series at some point at the end of the year, or even going into next year, 2022. But just doing a lot more of the things that I love to do, which is help people create transformation, and then having fun on the racetrack and on more stages.
What level are you racing at currently, or were racing at currently before COVID?
Yeah, so mostly doing West Coast sprint cars. So open wheel, non-wing sprint cars on dirt. I've got opportunities all over the country to race different cars. So hopefully we'll be in a mix of late model stock cars in the Carolinas on asphalt, and then doing some maybe USAC or Power I midgets in the Midwest. So as funding comes along and we create our own opportunities, we'll see where we end up. But those are all national touring divisions, and create a lot of exposure and opportunity.
Wow. The last podcast that we recorded, one of my co-hosts asked, one of our guest hosts asked our guest what the best advice that they had ever received was, and what would be the best advice they could give was. And I really like that question, so much so that I wanted to add it as kind of a permanent part going forward. So what is the best advice that you have ever received?
Ever received? Wow. Put me on the spot here. That's a big one.
I didn't put you on the spot.
Come on, James, help me out here. Man, the best advice that I could get from someone. Do you want to give or get first?
whatever you comes to mind to you to first.
I guess the greatest advice I could give is just show up big.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means to me is most of us end up playing pretty small. You know, you go to school, go to college, get a job, and you kind of hit the 9 to 5, or you just do the thing and you might do what's expected. And I think we ignore the dreams that we really have and the beliefs and the hopes for a grand future. And I'm a believer that God has wired us to do grand, big things. And we need more people who dream big and go big. And so, you know, this year, one of the things I'm telling myself, hey, I got to show up more. I got to be more present. I got to be more visible. I got to be seen. So, you know, when you're 15, 20, 25, I think sometimes that's easy to do. And then other times it's really, really difficult to do. And you're the fear of judgment, the worry, what other people are going to think, do. So just let go and show up big.
That's going to be a hashtag for us right there. Show up big.
There you go.
Hashtag.
So that's what I would tell you. What do I want to know? It's going to be okay. You'll figure it out.
I like that.
You know, it's simple. It's easy. I think you can overlook that statement. But in all the moments where you're feeling like things are just not working out, you know, you've got a lot of drama at home, or you've got drama at school, relationships, when things really seem bad, it's going to be okay. And you will figure it out. And the way you'll do that is you're going to take the next step forward and you're going to keep going because the world needs you.
What a message that needs to be heard right now.
Oh, yeah.
Seems like we needed to hear that when we were.
Yeah.
Wish somebody had grabbed hold of me and said, show up big.
Yeah.
Because you tend to you play to a room sometimes, and you're in small rooms.
There's so much fear in the world. You know, we all want to have some level of safety and security and comfort. But the greatest dreams and desires of our heart, they take a lot of risk and the willingness to say, hey, like this might not work out. But even in it might not work out, I'm still going to experience amazing things with amazing people. And those are the moments that, you know, I think about when I'm, 70 or 80 and, I'm, have grandkids and I can tell them about my life. I don't want to sit there and say, well, here's what I regret not doing. And here's all the things that I didn't do. I want to be able to say, here's what I did do. And even in the failure, I learned this. And I think, it's easy at 10, 15, 20, 25, and even 30 or 35 to get caught up in, well, I shouldn't do this because somebody else doesn't think it's the right thing to do, or what is so-and-so going to say about it, or the internal pressure of I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I don't have what it takes, I don't have enough money, whatever the things are. I'm a believer that we all have greatness within us that's unexpressed and even sometimes unknown. And so creating the awareness, taking the risk, put it on paper, start sharing it with other people, and the right people that believe in you will support you. They're going to come along and help you on your journey. But yeah, I mean, I wish I knew the things I knew. Even what I knew at 27, I wish I knew at 15. Now in my 30s, I wish I knew just even a percentage of that. Because like you're saying, it's like, oh man, like if you just would have taken that one extra risk, ask the girl out when you wanted to, but you didn't, or, go and apply to this college that you didn't, even though you probably wouldn't have gotten in, you still could have tried. Or maybe it's something external from school and friendships and relationships. Maybe you like coding and you like building websites and you're 17 years old and you could be making money today building websites, but you're too afraid to do it because your friends think it's stupid. Or maybe you have a side business and a side hustle in college that you feel like could be the next great thing, but you're too afraid of what your friends are going to say because it sounds a little stupid to them, but to you, it means the world. And so it's separating yourself from what the world's going to tell you and really sticking to, what is your heart telling you? What is your gut telling you? And, if you're faith-based, what is God telling you? And really just chasing after the things that are for you. Because I believe there's so much for us that we just write off as, oh, that's just an idea. That's stupid. It's no big deal. But really, it's the life-changing experience for all of us.
Do you guys this is when you were talking about that, and you were talking about believing in yourself, taking that extra chance, asking that girl out. Do y'all hear songs in your head when you said those things that kind of remind you of those experiences? Because you were thinking that, songs were coming in my head that I've sung that kind of, or I've listened to that kind of get me up, when things have gone down. Am I the only one? Am I weird, or are y'all hearing it as well?
Until I started writing songs, I would have said, no, not a chance. I don't really think that way. But as I've started writing songs and over the last 5 or 6 years, it's like everything now could be a song, like any phrase, any word, so you start seeing things. It's like photographers, when they go out with their camera, they see the world in a different way. As a songwriter, you start hearing little phrases, and you can even overhear something from a table at a restaurant. Like, oh, that's a song. I got to write it down. So yeah, you start hearing things differently for sure.
I was hearing Darius Rucker's song "This." Y'all know that song?
Yep.
This, where he talks about the choices that he has to make, and one of them was, every girl that I didn't ask out, or something, every college that I didn't get in, and I was thinking, gosh, man, that's the song. That's the song. There. I was listening to it and hearing it in my head there, going forward. So, Tyler, if our audience wants to connect with you, they want to find out more about you, they want to hear what you had to say, listen to your music, where can they find you?
Yeah, the best way is to connect. Instagram's T Williams Live. So just my first initial, T Williams Live. When you have Tyler Williams as a name, when you try to go get stuff, it's already taken. So T Williams Live on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Tyler Williams Live. The music is all over the digital outlets. Again, Spotify, Apple Music, Google, Amazon. My podcast, Beyond the Limit, if you want to dive into some interviews I've done with a lot of interesting people, from entrepreneurs, athletes, coaches, and speakers, just different thought leaders. You can find that anywhere from Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, and that's Beyond the Limit with Tyler Williams. And my website's tylerwilliamslive.com if you want to just see some stuff we're doing on music, racing, speaking, and catch up. And any place you can find us, I'm happy to connect and learn more about what's going on in your life and just share some stories.
So this year in 2021, they can expect to hear some more new music from you?
New music. I don't have a date yet. I'm hoping probably at this point it'll be sometime in April before we get the next single out. So we'll have a single out in April, and hopefully from there, every few weeks to months, we'll have a new song coming out throughout the year. And then I can't promise, but I'm working on a new book. And so hopefully at some point in 2021, you'll get a new book from me, and kind of a follow on from I Have a Voice. I Have a Voice is kind of the awareness piece. Mm-hmm. It's the awareness of having a voice. And this next book I'm working on is really about how do you apply that? What do you do with that as you put that in motion? Because it's one thing to know you have a voice. It's another thing to go apply that voice. Mm-hmm. And so hopefully have a new book out and just doing more of the things. You can, like I said, Instagram is the best place to follow because it's the most active of what I'm doing daily. And like I said, I put my head in the sand in 2020. 2021, we're going to see more content across the board. And
you're going to show up big in 2021.
That's it. We're going to show up big. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope we hear more about this show up big. I want to hear something in your new book about showing up big. I love that.
Showing up big.
That's the speech topic there, showing up big.
Oh,
That's a hashtag that we're going to use. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to use that as the show title. Showing up big with Tyler Williams. That's what we're going to do. Thank you, my friend, for taking your time out of your busy schedule to be with us and sharing with our audience. It's good to see you, brother. It's good to see you. It's been too long that we've connected.
Yeah, it's been great, and I appreciate your time. It's really good to share some time with both of you, James and Kinsey, and I hope it inspires your audience to show up big.
Thank you so much. And for our audience, we encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, share it with your friends, and all the information about his contact information will be down in the show notes. Just look down and you'll see all those with direct links as well, so that you can connect with Tyler. So see you again next week, audience.
Her shine when she steals the spotlight, like a red rock sunset headliner, keep it going all night. Those mainstay sound waves always hit you just right. She don't even realize she's like a New York Broadway marquee sign. She don't have have to try when she steals the spotlight.